Okay, so today we're going to focus on a bit of reflection. And what I want you to do is to take a moment to reflect on the progress you've made over the past year to 5 years, entirely up to you in terms of how far back you want to think. Predominantly, if you want to think over the past year, the progress you've made technically, tactically, physical, psychological, and the level you're playing. So if you go back, say, a year ago, where were you technically, tactically, physically, psychologically, and what level were you playing? Obviously, in the past year around the world, there's been different circumstances with the, pandemic, and also there's been different obviously injuries and barring illnesses and that sort of stuff. Really, it's not always a smooth run, but the idea is here to sort of gauge the progress you're making and sort of, focusing on running your own race and thinking, okay, what progress. Now, you don't have to write it down now, but you can go back over and think about it, but start thinking about it now. For example, where was I last year technically, this time last year, tactically, physically, what have I learnt in the last year? Physically, what were my times for my sprints, my fitness test? In what level was I playing last year? What level am I playing now? And this is quite useful because the idea here is we sort of reflect a bit. And now what I want to do is to think, okay, for a moment, is on a scale of 1 to 10, with 10 being high, could you genuinely look at yourself in the mirror and say, I'm happy with the progress I've made in the last year or so? And as I mentioned earlier before, obviously, there's been various circumstances in the last year. If I'm working with players and we're sort of focusing on the season, generally speaking, we've had the impact, lockdown, this, that, and the other, really. I know it's been different everywhere, but you still can gauge and get an idea. And as I said earlier before, it doesn't have to be the year. You can maybe go back further if you sort of want to do that. But really want to bring it into the sort of year or so from a season perspective, roughly a season, or a bit over a season. Think, okay, well, with 10 being high, and I'm extremely satisfied, because you should never really be happy completely. I mean, you can be happy in life, happy in general. I mean, in terms of our performance, we never want to rest on our laurels, So we think, okay, well, yeah, the progress I've made, you might think, and the players I work with sometimes, I'll say, okay, well, maybe technically I've improved about a 5. I could do for improving my left foot. Tactically, I could do for improving my game. Sometimes I am not quite sure, maybe marking in the box, maybe, like I said last week, drifting into the box at times and making the extra man. Just thinking technically where I am. Physically is easy to quantify, guys, because the fitness test, the VO2 max, bleep test, speed reaction, all these sort of things you can do and you can think about. So this is probably the easiest one, but sometimes it's useful to video some of your games and see tactically and also measure the technical side. Where am I now? Psychologically, my confidence, my motivation, my focus. And the big one is the level I'm playing at. Or maybe, if you find yourself in a situation where you're not starting games, then that becomes a bit of a problem, because obviously if you want to, enhance your career, then the idea is to start. And sometimes, I've said this before, I'll say it again. It's been a little bit controversial at times, but I've always said, like in the UK, it's better to play first team football, even at a lower level, than be reserve higher up. And I know people are going to say, well, what are you talking about? But I stand by that to this day. You're better off playing first team football, for me, Championship, League One, League Two even, than being a reserve for 5 years in the Premiership, because you're not getting that competitiveness. Okay, you're just not getting the competitiveness. And I can think of players who, and there's loads of players who've gone down, played first team football on loan, Not as much now, but, back in the day, certainly, my involvement with team, we had players, loaned out, and it's a good opportunity. The only drawback is obviously, I suppose it's changed a bit now, but the facilities and just generally speaking, but first team football is where it's at. So sometimes it's about, okay, you could be playing in a higher league, but if you're not getting that first team football, then the edge, and you've got to think carefully, what do I do next year? Do I play another year in the league because it's highest I can get in the state or in the country? But if I'm sitting on the bench and I'm playing reserve football, then, how challenging is that? And there are things you've got to think about and talk to your coaches with. I suppose you talk to your family about these things too, because it's got implications for them. But generally speaking, without sort of undermining family, with all the best intentions, these sort of things the coach is qualified to talk about. Because obviously, if you talk about these things to family and friends, there might be bias. They might think, well, you're the best player. And they mean well, but they're not doing you favors in doing that. I've said this before, when you get family, parents that get involved in the game and they throw the opinion, and they're entitled to it, and I respect them for that. But the issue is that, for the most part, they've got their job, we've got our job. We see you in training. We see you, we know. So this is what we're sort of qualified to do, our areas. So our judgment is not going to be as obviously, biased in that respect. So we'll tell you like it is. And this is why it's important to talk to your coach as well and say, okay, you've been with the same coach for a year. I'll speak to Tony, the coach of the academy, and say, okay, since I've been here, what are your thoughts? Do you think I've improved? Am I improving? Am I going in the right direction? Because you'll know, and I said this last week, you make it for a team, irrespective of what team it is, then it's another challenge. I'm not saying it's harder or less or more harder. It's its own challenge. If I break into the first team, it brings its own challenge, staying there. Because then, you got injury, you got illness, you got bad form, a couple of bad games and you're on the way. So the idea here is a bit of reflection, thinking, well, today, am I satisfied? And just being true to yourself. Just be, really true and upfront and think, over the past year, have I progressed on a scale with, 10 being high? If you've got 10 for everything, then you're on the way, you're flying. There's not much any of us can do for you. But if you're true to yourself, you'll say, okay, actually, you know what? And then you want to find out the reasons. As I mentioned earlier, there are things that are beyond our control. Look, I was involved with a team last year, and obviously we've had the pandemic and it was stop-start originally. And we were flying a non-league team, Bay Cup, we were flying and, winning teams and, comfortably playing some great football. Then obviously, it is what it is. What can you do? We can't control that. We went back to the season in I think it was August, and then a few months into it, it stopped, it started. And so there's nothing we can do about that. All we can do is what we can within the perimeters. But there's no reason why we can't, within the boundaries of, at times, set training. So, find a way to keep the players ticking over within the rules and regulations, obviously. So, what I'm saying there is everyone's running their own race here. It's not always a linear thing. But I think it's really important too, when you reflect, guys, to sort of be proud of your achievements and progress as well. And, I don't want you to just think of this and think, okay, it's doom and gloom if you're only sort of, because I mentioned you could think further back. You might have reached a plateau. We all do. And it's harder to improve when you hit a plateau. That could be a reason where you've got so high and now it's just incrementally. So maybe you were 7, maybe you've sort of 7 or 8, and it gets harder, like physically. If you run 20 meters if you run 20 meters under 3 seconds, then it's harder to go to 2.9, 2.8. So you start looking at economy of running. You start looking at different things. VO2. If you get it up to say 3.5, it's harder, so we keep that in mind, but then you can look back further. I think maybe 5 years ago, this is where I was, and it's useful. So I don't want it to be, downbeat. And also if you had an injury, something come up beyond your control, okay, fair enough. But even that said and done, then you look at those barriers and think, okay, if you haven't picked up an injury, then maybe you're watching games. If you're watching games on the sofa just for pure enjoyment, you've got an injury, then you're a fan, and we're all fans of football. I enjoy watching football. I watched the game before, a couple of games today, from that point of view. But I'm always thinking when I'm watching too, but you've got to watch tactically. What are they doing new now? What are the new formations that they're playing? And because you've seen yourselves, and you see things like the Premier League, one year you win the league by 20 points, the next year you're nowhere. And that's how fast things move in football. It just, it really moves so quick. And there's various things. That's why it's really important. And I'm saying this because it's not all doom and gloom. If you're not progress where you want to be, just sort whatever needs sorting out going forward. Because you'll have those years where you absolutely, fly through it, guys. You know what it's like, them years where you just really, and if you keep an eye on it, you're aware of it. There's going to be a year for some of you guys, if you haven't experienced already, where you come on leaps and bounds if you keep doing the right things. You train hard, you keep going, it'll happen for you. I've seen it. I've been in the game for long enough to know. I've seen players who sometimes you would never imagine at a certain point would make it, but they quietly go about their business. They train hard. They stay back after training. They work on their free kicks. They watch games. They go swimming to do recovery training. They work on their speed. They work in the weight room. Then out of nowhere, everyone thinks, wow, where's this person come from? And they're generally the ones. I can think of plenty of players like that. The level you're playing, there's sort of things to think about. Am I happy playing the level I'm at? The positives, and be proud of your achievements. Be proud of where you improved. To get to where you are takes a lot of hard work and dedication. To get up in the morning, I've said this before and I'll say it again, when everybody's still asleep, a lot of people are anyway, or they may as well be, you are up and you're giving your best shots. There's a lot of pride in that, guys. And that for me shows me that even if you do another job eventually, or you go into a different field, there's something about you guys that'll stay with you forever. In 20 years' time, whether you're sort of, playing football, coaching, you've got a business, I know you're the type of guys that are going to get up the extra hour or two and do what needs doing. So that holds well for you as a person, because life is that way. It's not easy in business, in study. You're going to keep going. You're going to keep, fighting, till the end, which is, we've got to keep going. What's really important is a lot of players, guys. It's what I called dine on yesterday. There's plenty of players out there. I've seen plenty of them. They're happy dining on yesterday. I used to be, when they reflect, 5 years ago, I won this championship. I played at this stadium. If you're happy with that, fine. I've not got a problem with that with players, if that's the way they want to be. But, obviously, it's their call. I don't tell people what they should and shouldn't do. But the point being is that, you can fall into that mindset, and it's easy to do. When I say easy to do, we still have some success. You see it, coaches, managers, and I've even been there myself. Sometimes you believe in your own sort of, you have a bit of success and think, okay, but something will always bring you back down to earth. But you can be that sort of person that goes to a bar, pub, or whatever you go, or socialize, and talk about, the time you scored the goal, you went on trial, you had those two, and that's, some people are happy with that. But something tells me you guys aren't those sort of people, because you wouldn't be getting up and trying to be the best you can be. So we move forward. And what I'm saying is, how satisfied would you be if you were playing the same level of football next year that you are now? Something tells me that you wouldn't be the type of guys that would be satisfied, because you wouldn't be getting up. You've got other things you could do. And what you need to start doing is what sort of improvements do you need to make to play at the level you want to play for? Where do I need to improve? Now, the good thing is you're in control of what you're in control of, but you need to take action. And that's why I keep saying every week, I keep saying it. If you don't take action, nothing's going to happen. The coaches can't do it for you. Teammates can't do it. You got it yourself. So what I want to do is get you to think about this, guys. And you can do this later again if you want to as well. Think about this time next year. You're writing a letter to yourself. Okay. You're writing a letter to yourself. And basically what you do is write down what level you're playing at. It's just hypothetical. I'm playing at this level for this team. And you might think, oh, what's all that about? But I remember one time, and I stand corrected because I don't know if this is for sure, but I remember one time when I was doing an interview. I was interviewing, at the time I was doing an interview at Man City. I was at the press conference there. And I'm pretty sure I heard a journalist saying that, I'm 99.9% for sure, I heard a journalist saying that Mancini, who was the manager at the time, and his coaching staff did a letter to themselves. I'm not saying they did it based on I've been doing this for a while too. People know about this sort of stuff. Not the only one who does this. There's other people who do my job too. Where they learned it from, I don't know. I'm pretty sure it wasn't me. But I've always done this with my players too. And I thought, wow, I've always done this too. I tell my players to write down. This was the year when they won the league for the first time. I think it was that long ago. In a long time. The first time in a long time, I'm pretty sure that was the one. I'd like to sort of see if it was true. I don't know. You only got what they say. But I know a lot of players who do it. But the point being is, okay, well, where will you be playing next year? Okay, where will you be playing? If you were to open that letter up and it's the March 2022, where will you be? And you've seen how quickly things can change. 1 minute you're playing here and then a year later you're in a stadium. It can change really quick, but it won't change by itself. You've got to work for it. So a letter to yourself is really good. A lot of athletes do it. The only reason people don't do it sometimes is that you think, okay, well, I can't control what happens, and what if this happens, and what if? But you think, okay, March 2022, where will I be playing? So if you were to open it up, the level I'm playing at, the players I'm playing against, the grounds I'm at, and that projects your mind in the direction that you want to go. That sort of is a projection of where you want to go. And you can do this even every 6 weeks or so, but a year is a good thing, to project. And I do this with my players every year. I'm at a stable of players and I get them to write down, where do you want to be at the end of the season? What do you want to have achieved at the end of the season? So it's the end of the season. I've scored 15 goals. I've done this many assists, and so on and so forth. I'm playing for this team. I've got a transfer to do whatever. And this is the sort of theory I've got, is that you rise up every day and see the opportunity every day. I know life isn't always easy, and I'm not saying it's, get up and everything's wonderful. It's not. But you got a choice to choose the attitude you use. You want to get around winners and people who've got that winning mindset, not people who sort of, always see the negative in situations. Be the sort of person who thinks, today's an opportunity. I'm up. I'm going to sort of take action, which is key. So now looking at the big picture as well, take a moment to focus again, where you are now in the now. I want to think about this for a moment, guys, reflecting. What level of football are you playing now compared to where you were a year ago, or compared to where you were maybe a few seasons ago? Okay. It's really interesting when I interview people on radio, and I interview a lot of world-class athletes. I always ask them this question when I interview them: at what point did you think I've got a chance here? And I ask a lot of them that, And I always ask them, what point do you think you had a chance to be a world champion, win a medal, you know, play for that team? And they always sort of tell you there's a point in their life they just know, you know, there's a certainty where they just felt it, that vibe. And you might have reached that, you might not, I don't know, but have it, you know, being really self-aware when you sort of know where you are. Or some people say, you know what, you know, some people who don't, you know, go on to play at the very highest level where they intended to play. They knew that they found their level and they succeeded. They felt, well, I've done everything I can. I've trained hard. I've put it all in. Maybe they got injured. Maybe they didn't get selected. Maybe a bit of bad luck. Maybe they just, it wasn't to be. Something else was planned for their life, and you know, it might feel disappointing. But life's, you know, a marathon. There's other things that people end up doing in life that are equally good, you know, for them. But the big picture is really is you know, where you are now compared to the past, and see how far you've come along, and where you are now compared to the big picture. Not where you want to be next year, where you want to be ultimately. And this gets a bit more scary because you think, oh, next year it'll soon come by, but ultimately you think, what do I want to have achieved? If you look back, say from the end of your career, in 10 years, in 5 years, in 20 years, who knows how long your career will go for. You know, I think, well, what will I have wanted to achieve? Will I have wanted to win this cup, play for this team, and do all the wonderful things that you set out to achieve? International football, that could be a goal. It's a possibility. Everything's a possibility. But the point being is, where am I now compared to the big picture? And then to make it real, technically, what do I need to do where I am now to where I need to be to have achieved the things I want to achieve? Where am I now tactically? Okay, compared to the person that I want to be, the player I want to be, the achievements. So physically, compared to the big picture. Okay, what's it going to take physically? You know, the big picture, end of the career. You could compare it to the peak of your career. You know, it could be at an age where you're on fire. You're playing your best football ever. You know, where are you, do you think, from there? You might be playing your best football now. I don't know. You know, psychologically, confidence, motivation, and the level, you know, what level would you have wanted to have reached at the end of your career when you look back on it at the peak of your career, and where are you now? I said, everyone's got their own goals. It's okay. It's all relative to the individual. But these are the things we're reflecting on today to think about. And it's a good time to do it at the start of the week, because you think, okay, I can do something about it this week. You know, who knows what can happen in the space of a week. You know, in the space of a week, you're playing football 1 second for one team in a certain level. Could be, you know, second level of tier football. Then all of a sudden, you know, a team gets an injury to a right back or centre forward, a keeper, and you get the call. That's how fast things can change. But they might not change that quickly. It might be that you play a season of excellent football, you hit the radar. You know, I heard today, I was reading something today that, you know, a Premiership team are tracking a player in, I think it was in Belgium or France, to see how he gets on. And they do these things. They, you know, you get on the radar. Are you on the radar of teams? You know, get yourself on that radar, which is the sort of key to it. And that's the sort of, you know, what we're focusing on there. Now, to keep it real and sort of put the big picture to one side and the end of the career to one side, think about where you are now. This time next year, where will you be technically? You know, where will you be? All right, Tony.
You good, man?
All good, Tony. All good, buddy. Yeah, all good, buddy. Yeah. So this time next year, guys, Where will I be technically this time next year? Where will I be tactically? Okay, how many goals will you have scored? Assists? Physically this time next year will you be? Psychologically, what level will you play? Now, with this, you got great coaches who can help you be the best you can be. They'll tell you what to do. With this, I'll tell you what to do. With this, you need to take responsibility and go out there and do it, because the coach can't play for you, I'm afraid. It's your job once you cross the white line, put your game head on and get on with it. Physically, the coaches, you got the great coaches, they'll tell you where you need to be, but you've got to get in the gym and work out and do the running. Psychologically, you've got me, I've got a lot of experience as well. I can tell you exactly the mindset of players that reach the top pretty much. That's what I'm doing with you now. That's why I've come into the program. And the level you're playing at, you need a bit of luck. I don't like using the word luck, but you need a bit of luck because, what I mean by luck is sometimes, the right opportunity comes up. Like I said before, not to wish anyone misfortune, but a top team needs a keeper and, the keeper gets a hamstring injury and you're good to go. And these little things, but ultimately, if you week in, week out, guys, do the right things, then you'll get to where, you're meant to get to. That's the big deal. So take a moment to think. And this is a reflective session. It's really important that you reflect because life's like a treadmill. You just run on this treadmill all the time. You're training and you're running around and you're doing this, you're doing that. You got time to think. And I do this with my players a lot too, my stable of players, because they're so, week to week and the games are coming fast and they lose form and they get injured, they come back, they're confident. And it's really important to, stop and think, okay, where exactly am I? Am I making progress in the way I want to make it? And how do I get there? What do you want to do? And this is the important thing, guys. Focus. You need to focus, okay, at the right times. After you've played football, yeah, exactly, have a good time, watch, TV, relax, family. But when you got your job in hand, this morning, when you go and train, you need to, like I mentioned last week, really focus on what you're doing. Every kick of the ball, every pass, every training, everything you do, you need to really focus and be really switched on, because you need to train, okay, as you play. The two go hand in hand. If you train anything less than what you intend to play, bit by bit, the standards drop. And when the standard drops even millimeters, okay, there's a premiership team. I'm not going to name names. But there's a premiership team that won the league last year by a mile. They're going to use excuses that players have been injured. But everyone's injured. Every team gets injuries. The bottom line is, if you want to play football to that intensity, week in, week out, eventually it's going to catch up on you. It catches up on all of us. And I was saying to a colleague of mine who does some work at that club, he's also at Bay Cup. I said to him, this team is going to struggle to make the top four this year. And he said, what makes you say that? And I said, because I went to a conference a few years ago and I know exactly what the manager wanted to play for, according to the sports scientist, the sort of tempo. And that sort of tempo, when you got so many games coming thick and fast, it's a marathon, not a sprint. So what I'm saying, and the reason I'm using that is not to call people out. It's none of my business. I'm not involved in that club in any way, shape, or form. So I don't, not my place. But I use these examples because you've got to pace yourself in sport. Okay, step by step, pace yourself. And I'm not undermining teams and players. They've won, successful. It's not my job to do that. This is not being disrespectful to anybody. I'm just sort of stating my opinion, and people, I'm open about that. We're all entitled to one. It's like when people complain, like whether it's game of football, even the game of cricket, people complain, the cricket pitch wasn't good, but both teams played on the same field. If you want to make excuses for yourself, guys, you can. And sometimes you're justified to do that. But if you keep making excuses, then in the end, what's going to happen? Undermine yourself. So what I'm saying is that what's in my control? This is the things I'm going to get you to reflect on, okay? I mentioned earlier, the team, non-league team I was working with were flying. Baker, you can see the results. You'll see the table before. We were flying in the cups and everything. And when the season started and was in and out of lockdown and whatever. And in the end, they, at that level of the game, it's, the tier that we're in, we couldn't keep playing at that point. So we're not in control of that. We did our job to the best of our ability in the constraints we're under, but that's life. You've got to take it on the chin sometimes. It's the way it is in sport. So you think about now for a moment, guys, and you can go over it. You can think about this really clearly. What do I need to improve technically? What do I have to do different to improve technically what I'm doing now? What you've done will have got you to where you are now. To go to where you want to go, you're going to have to do something different. Because if you're just maintaining what you've got, okay, that'll keep you where you are. To go to where you want to go, then you've got to start doing, and you guys, I admire you guys, you're at the academy, you're doing things different, you've got great coaches who've got a track record, by the way. It's out there, you've seen it, don't need me to go on about it, you wouldn't be there. So the point being is, okay, but you've got to use the resources you've got. If they put a drill on for you and you're at 50%, your mind's thinking about the program on Saturday, you're thinking about, the situation with a friend, or if you're not on it and focused, then the training session is diminished. It's not as effective as it would normally be, because you need to really focus on the training session, on what you're doing, and think, what would I have to do to improve tactically to go to where I want to go? Physically is an easier one because you can measure it. Psychologically, it's about you being true to yourself. What would have to be different for me to achieve the level I want to play? If you think you should be at a different level, ask yourself, how come I'm at the level I'm at if I think I should be at a different level? What gives me the right to think that? Okay, and prove it. That's the key. If you're not being played by the manager, then, you can be that sort of player that goes away and complains, or you can be the sort of person that you guys are, people who are willing to go for it and get up in the morning and not have to sort of prove a point to anybody other than yourselves that you can do it. So it may be just a decision that's not, that's based on their perception of the game. It might not be. Look, there's been plenty of players that haven't made it in one team and they've gone out to another team. I read this thing on LinkedIn this week, guys, about Haaland. I don't know if it's 100% true or what the situation was. And once again, I don't want to have a go at any teams, and I don't know the full circumstance, but Haaland, who's probably the best striker in Europe at the moment, allegedly there was a Premiership team that had, for 4 days when he was 15 years of age, he was there and they didn't sign him. And that's the same, even Calvin Lewin at Sheffield, I think it was. They didn't see. And you could look, I know I've been at clubs before, what it's like. We all miss out on players at times, but I'm not having to go up the club. I'm saying that sometimes just people don't see it. You might be injured, you might be ill. So going forward, before we close, what we want to do is really think, okay, once again, retune your mind, and these are mental skills, okay? Once again, refocus again. We're going to keep, drilling this into you to get you to focus. What level do you want to play the game? Where do you want to be? What do you want to achieve? How many goals do you want to score? Is it attainable? What action do I need to take? All I feel when I achieve the level I set out to achieve. What are the consequences of achieving my goal? So it might mean you need to travel abroad, live somewhere else, and that comes with consequences. you know, away from family, different environment. Everything has a consequence. You know, you're willing to do the consequences. And what resources do I have to get there? Am I accountable for getting there? Am I responsible for it? And what road ahead do I take? So to conclude today, perfect timing. I want to think now, if we had a reunion next year, the 1st of the 3rd, 22, and we were back in the room, once again, I had to project and think, okay, you come back, and hopefully when we do have a reunion, you share your success stories, but equally, even if, you know, you're not where you want to be in a year, you keep believing, you keep going, that you keep doing the right things, you'll find your way in the world. But think if you were to come back next year and we were to sit down, have this, you know, bouncing ideas, think, okay, what level would you be playing at? Okay, where will you be playing? Will it be a different country? Will it be a different team? Will it be, you know, a different league? How many goals will you have scored? And this is to get your mindset thinking forward. Okay, thinking, you know, where you want to be, what you're working for. The reason you're getting up in the morning early to train and work hard and put the effort in, and the effort that goes in from you guys and the coaches, it's a massive team effort. You know, I'm sure you enjoy it, but it's not just for the fun of it. It's because you mean business. And this is why we do this, because, you know, where we're going with this is the key. Okay, if you just want to jolly up, then there's plenty of other things you can do. You know, you can go for a walk in the park or wherever really, but you're here and you mean business. And that's the mindset I want you guys to be in throughout the week, and do the training and think, okay, it was the 1st of the 3rd, 22, and I was to come back to the academy, you know, for a week, or maybe you join on Zoom if you're playing abroad or something like that. You know, what I want to tell the rest of the lads, you know, and the guys, what my experience was like. Where will I be playing? What will I be doing? All these really important things, because then you can think ahead, and then from the now, take steps to get there and make it real. Okay, believe in yourself. Aim high. Aim as high as you can. Okay, and don't be afraid to fail, because the higher you aim, the better chance you've got of achieving your potential. If it doesn't work out, people are afraid, well, if I aim really high, I don't get there, then I'll feel disappointed. Disappointment, guys, is a part of life. You know, we're going to be disappointed in life, not just from football, from many other things. It's not what you do when you're disappointed, it's what you do when you fall down. Okay, that's the key, because we're all going to fall. I've been in football games, I've been beaten, okay, and I've been disappointed, you know, hugely. You go into games, you expect to win. I've been knocked out of tournaments, been beaten. You know, there are times you play on a Saturday, you get beat, and your Saturday evening is literally ruined. You kind of think, you know, I can't even eat on the Saturday very well. The food tastes different. You gut it, you know. But then you pick yourself up on Sunday, back in the pool, you know, we go again, you know, and that's the sort of key. So I'm saying it's okay to be disappointed, as long as you don't take it at anybody else, you know, and you pick yourself up again. And that's about the goal analogy. You know, you don't get to where you want to get to. Yeah, you're right to feel disappointed, but then what do you do after that? You know, are you one of those players who picks himself up and goes again and gets there? Are you one of those people who says, you know what, actually, you know what, I've enjoyed my career. I might, you know, do something else, succeed somewhere else, because these skills, guys, are transferable. I said earlier before, you know, anyone that gets up and wants to train like you guys and put the effort in, you'll transfer these skills. If you work in business, the business people you're working, who your competition, are going to think, this guy means business because he's working harder than me and putting the effort in. In school, academia, it's the same thing applies, the transferable skills. So we've sort of reached the close, guys. This, once again, I'll you know, do email me if you've got any questions, comments. Otherwise, all my details are on here. I'm always happy to help to the best of my ability, which I'll do. And we go again next week, guys. So, wish you guys a fantastic session. And we go again next week, guys. Well done. Thanks, guys. Thank you.